My wife called me boring after I paid off her debts, so I let her go. Then let her watch me live the life. She mocked I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I've always believed in doing the right thing, even when it cost me personally. It's just who I am. Responsible, reliable, the kind of guy who would drop everything to help someone, even if it meant putting myself last. I'm sure a lot of people would call it dumb, but I've always thought that if you love someone, you take on their burdens as your own. That's how it was with Jessica. I met her when we were both in our late 20s. She was ambitious, charming, everything I thought I could ever want. She had this infectious energy, like she could take on the world if she just had the right break. And I believed in her. I believed in us. But Jessica, well, she had this wild side. Financially, she was a mess. Credit cards maxed out, student loans piling up. Every month seemed like a struggle to just keep things together. And being the person I am, I took it all on. I paid off her credit card debts, took care of her student loans, even helped her find a new career path when she was stuck. She said she was just trying to find herself, and I kept thinking, one day it'll pay off. I didn't mind the sacrifice. I loved her, and love means supporting the person you're with, right? For a while, things felt great. We had that kind of love where everything felt possible. The future felt wide open. And I trusted her, trusted us, like I never trusted anyone before. But there were moments, small ones, that hinted at something different. A comment here, a glance there. She'd say things like, I guess you have to be the one to fix everything, don't you? Or, not everyone can be so perfect with money. I never thought the person I loved most could make me feel this small. Until that day, it started off like any other day. Jessica was at home, working from her new job, and I was at the office, pushing through another long day. I'd just paid off the last of her student loans, and we were starting to talk about planning for the future, saving for a house, maybe even starting a family. I remember feeling proud. We'd come so far, and I was hopeful. But something had been gnawing at me for weeks, a feeling that didn't make sense at first. Jessica seemed distant. She was always on her phone, texting or scrolling through something. When I asked her about it, she'd just brush it off, saying she was doing research or checking up on work stuff. But that night, everything came crashing down. I came home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner and maybe talk about a trip we'd been planning. Instead, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. The conversation we were supposed to have wasn't happening. "You okay?" I asked, setting my keys down. She looked up a little too quickly, like I'd startled her. "Yeah, just tired," she said. But there was something off in her voice. A tension in the air I couldn't shake. I didn't push it. Not right away. But as the evening wore on, I started noticing things. She was pulling away, even physically. We were supposed to be sitting together on the couch, but she stayed at the table, tapping away on her phone. I tried to ignore it, but it kept eating at me. And then, at the worst possible moment, I saw it, a message on her screen left open on the table. It wasn't much, just a few words. "Thanks for the help last night, babe. See you this weekend." Babe, it was like the room froze. My stomach turned, but I didn't know why. I just knew that something wasn't right. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jessica glanced up, eyes wide, and then she quickly locked her phone too fast. "No one," she said, a little too quickly. "Just work stuff." But the smile she gave me didn't reach her eyes, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just crossed into a place I didn't belong anymore. The next few days felt like they stretched on forever. Jessica was still distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time I tried to bring it up, she'd brush me off, claiming I was overthinking things. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I kept going through the motions, trying to maintain the image of the perfect marriage. We went to dinner with friends that weekend. It was supposed to be a fun, casual night, but even then I could feel the distance. She was laughing and joking, but I couldn't ignore how she kept her phone close, checking it every few minutes. At one point, she even excused herself from the table to take a call in the middle of dinner. When she returned, her smile was back, but it didn't seem genuine. It was like she was playing a part, trying to convince everyone that everything was fine. But I could tell she wasn't looking at me the same way anymore. The way she used to smile at me, the way her eyes used to soften when she'd catch my gaze across the room, that was gone. It was starting to feel like I was losing her. And I couldn't even figure out why. That night, I stayed up late, unable to sleep, my mind racing. I was tired of the uncertainty. Tired of pretending everything was fine when it so clearly wasn't. My gut was screaming at me to find out the truth, but I didn't know if I was ready for what I might find. I picked up her phone. My hands shook as I unlocked it, something I never thought I'd do. But I had to know. I couldn't stand the unknown any longer, and there it was. The text. More messages. More pictures. A conversation between Jessica and someone I didn't recognize. But one name stuck out. Ethan. It was the tone of their conversation that hit me hardest. The jokes, the flirtation, the way she was speaking to him like she used to speak to me, like we used to joke. Before everything got so complicated. I read through the messages, each word slicing deeper until I couldn't take it anymore. My stomach felt like it was about to collapse into itself. I wanted to throw the phone down, scream, run away. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, frozen. Jessica, I whispered, my voice barely audible. She came into the room, looking at me with a confused expression. "What are you doing with my phone?" she asked, her tone a mix of surprise and irritation. I didn't even know where to start. I looked at her, the phone still in my hand, my heart hammering in my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt stuck. How could I confront her with this? With what I had just read? My mind raced, and for a moment, it felt like I was drowning in the silence between us. Jessica. My voice cracked, and I couldn't stop myself from looking down at the screen in my hand. Who is Ethan? Her eyes widened, just for a second. The shock in her face was almost comical, like she hadn't expected me to find out. But that moment passed, and she quickly regained her composure. Her smile returning, but it was tight. Forced. "It's not what you think," she said, taking a step toward me. Trying to grab the phone from my hand, I pulled it away, my grip tightening. I wasn't going to let her brush this off like it was nothing. Not this time. "You've been texting him like this for months, Jessica," I said, my voice getting louder. "I thought I was helping you. I thought we were building a life together. And now I find out you're—" I stopped myself, my throat closing up because the words didn't even seem real. "You're with someone else?" She froze, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't just guilt. It was shame. But then, as if she was trying to regain control of the situation, she let out a small laugh, one that didn't reach her eyes. "Come on, don't be dramatic," she said, trying to lighten the mood. "It's just a little fun. Nothing serious." Fun. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All these months, I had been working myself to the bone, paying off her debts, helping her restart her career, and this is how she repaid me? By finding someone else to give her the attention I thought we shared? "You're kidding, right?" I said, almost laughing myself, but there was no humor in it. "You think that's nothing serious? You've been sending him pictures, flirting with him." She stepped back, her posture changing from defensive to something more desperate. "It's not like that. I swear, it's just someone to talk to, someone who gets me." The words hit me harder than anything else. Someone who gets her? I had been there for her through everything, and this was how she repaid me. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been letting me love her, believing in something that was falling apart behind my back? The silence stretched on. I stood there staring at her, the weight of everything hitting me like a freight train. But it was clear. I wasn't the person she wanted, and I wasn't the person she needed. I turned away from her, the air in the room thick with the weight of betrayal. I couldn't look at her anymore. I needed space, needed to breathe, but I knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Everything was surreal, like I was on the outside looking in, watching someone else's life fall apart. Every time I saw Jessica, it was like I was staring at a stranger. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had worked so hard to build a future with, was gone. In her place was someone I didn't even recognize. She tried to talk to me. Of course she did. She apologized, said she was sorry, and that it was a mistake, but the words didn't mean anything. How could they? They were empty. All those late nights I stayed up, working hard to provide for us, all the sacrifices I made to help her become something more. And now this? I couldn't even bring myself to look at her without feeling like I was suffocating. Every time she'd apologize, I could only hear her words in the back of my mind. "It's just someone to talk to, someone who gets me." I spent most of my time at work, pretending to care, pretending to focus on anything that wasn't falling apart at home. but it wasn't enough to block out the gnawing feeling in my chest. I was devastated, more than I could put into words. But at the same time, I couldn't bring myself to leave. I was stuck in this cycle of pain and hope, where I kept thinking maybe, just maybe, things would change. Maybe we could fix it, but the cracks were getting bigger. And it wasn't just the betrayal with Ethan. It was everything that had been bubbling beneath the surface for months. The way she dismissed my feelings, how she belittled my sacrifices, and how, for the first time in our relationship, I felt completely invisible to her. Then, one evening, everything came to a head. I came home late after another long day at work, exhausted but expecting nothing more than silence from Jessica. I figured she would be in her office, lost in whatever world she'd built for herself. But when I walked in, the living room light was on, and there she was, standing by the window, staring out into the night. Her back was turned, but I could see her shoulders shaking, the faintest tremor in her hands. I hesitated at the door. I didn't want to approach her. I didn't know if I could handle any more of her lies, any more of her empty apologies, but then she spoke. And her voice cracked in a way that I didn't expect. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not looking at me. I don't know how I got here. I took a deep breath, fighting back the overwhelming wave of anger and hurt. But I couldn't stop myself. "How long?" I asked, the words coming out before I could stop them. "How long has this been going on?" She didn't turn around. She just stood there silent until finally she spoke again. "Months," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Months." It felt like the ground had just been pulled out from beneath me. She had been lying to me, not just about Ethan, but about everything. All the time we had spent together, all the promises she had made, had been built on a foundation of lies. I stood there, rooted to the spot, staring at her, feeling like a fool. My mind was racing, and all I could do was ask the one question that had been haunting me since the moment I saw those messages. "Why didn't you just tell me?" Her answer was as hollow as everything else she had said. "I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you." But she already had. I stood there staring at her back, my mind whirling with 1,000 thoughts, none of them making sense. Scared? Scared? Was that really her excuse? My chest tightened, a cold rage bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. I had given her everything. My time, my energy, my sacrifices, all of it. And this was the response I got? "I've been nothing but honest with you, Jessica," I said, my voice dangerously calm, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions inside me. "I gave you everything, and this is what you've done? You've been lying to me for months." She finally turned around, her eyes red, her face pale. She was crying, but the sight of her tears didn't move me. All I felt was an overwhelming numbness, as if I had run out of any emotions that were worth feeling. "I never meant for it to happen like this," she said, stepping toward me, her hands trembling. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make everything work. But I couldn't. I messed up. She couldn't? She couldn't fix it?" I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head, feeling something inside me snap. "Fix it," I spat. "You've been playing me, Jessica. You've been playing both of us." The silence between us felt suffocating, thick with everything we hadn't said until now. I had trusted her more than anyone in my life. But she had broken that trust, and now she was standing here, apologizing with the same empty words she'd used before, the words I had hoped would mean something, but they didn't. "I can't do this anymore," I finally said, my voice quiet, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Her face crumpled, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I wanted to, but every instinct in me was telling me to walk away, to get as far away from this betrayal as possible. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, slipping it on without even looking at her. She reached out for me, but I flinched, stepping back. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice desperate. "Please don't leave like this," but I already knew. This wasn't just about the affair with Ethan. This was about everything that had been wrong for a long time. About the way she had treated me like I was disposable. About how I had let her walk all over me for far too long. "I don't know," I said, my voice breaking just slightly, but I couldn't stop myself. "But I know I can't stay here." As I walked out the door, the weight of what I was doing hit me harder than anything she had said. It felt like I was walking away from everything I had ever believed in, everything I had fought for, but it was the only thing I could do. The days that followed felt like a blur. I moved into a small apartment I found just a few blocks away, just far enough to get some distance, but close enough that I could still hear the echoes of my life with Jessica. At night, the silence was deafening. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the face of the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. The face that now felt like a stranger. I kept replaying that night in my head over and over. Her words, her excuses, the way she looked at me like I was the one who was wrong. It was suffocating. It was like she had taken everything, every ounce of trust, every moment of connection, and shattered it in front of me. But as much as I hated her for what she did, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I wanted to pick up the phone and call her, to beg her to explain, to tell me it wasn't as bad as it seemed. I wanted closure, but I knew I wasn't going to get it from her. I wasn't going to get it from anyone. At work, I went through the motions, but it was clear to everyone around me that something was wrong. My mind wasn't in it. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think about anything other than the wreckage of my marriage. Then, one afternoon, I got a text from Jessica. It was simple. I know I've hurt you, but I miss you. I want to talk. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, unsure if I should respond. Every part of me wanted to give in, to hear her side of things, to let her apologize again and pretend like things could go back to how they were. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. I couldn't keep letting her pull me back in just to hurt me again, but I couldn't just ignore her either. The pull of what we used to have was still there, deep in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I took a deep breath and typed back, "What do you want to talk about?" A moment later, her reply came, "I just need to explain everything. Can we meet, please?" I stared at the screen, torn between wanting to hear her explanation and knowing it wouldn't change anything. I had already made up my mind, hadn't I? I had walked away, but the hole in my chest wouldn't close, and every part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth saving. I stood up, pacing around my small apartment. Wrestling with myself, I didn't want to meet her, but I also couldn't walk away without knowing the truth. With a sigh, I typed my final reply. Fine. But this is the last time. I sent the message and immediately regretted it, but now there was no turning back. The day we agreed to meet felt like the longest day of my life. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept drifting back to Jessica, to the life we once shared. I tried to push it all aside, but the weight of her betrayal still hung heavy in my chest. The idea of facing her again after everything was suffocating. I showed up at the small cafe we used to visit on weekends. It was quiet, the kind of place where you could sit for hours and not be disturbed. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me wanted to be angry, to walk in there and demand answers. But the other part of me, the part that still missed her, just wanted to understand why. I sat at a table near the back, trying to calm my nerves, but my hands kept shaking. The minutes felt like hours. Every time the door opened, my heart skipped a beat, thinking it was her, and then she walked in. For a moment, everything stopped. The woman who had once been my everything now looked so different. The confidence she once carried with ease was gone. Her eyes, once full of life, were tired, hollow. She seemed smaller, like the weight of everything had taken its toll on her. She spotted me across the room and walked over slowly, her steps hesitant. When she sat down, the air between us was thick with the tension of all the things left unsaid. "I'm sorry," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at her hands, unable to meet my eyes. I don't even know where to begin. I didn't say anything. I just sat there staring at her, letting her speak. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I knew whatever she said wouldn't undo what had happened. She had already broken me. "I never wanted to hurt you," she continued, her voice shaking. "I don't even know how it all happened. I didn't plan any of this. I never thought I could lose you over something like this." It was painful to watch her like this, guilt and regret pouring out of her, but it didn't change what she had done. I wanted to feel sorry for her, I really did, but I couldn't, not anymore. "So what was Ethan?" I asked, the question coming out sharper than I intended. "What was he to you?" She flinched at the name and her eyes flickered for just a second. He was someone I could talk to, someone who made me feel important again. I don't know what happened. It just got out of control. I could feel my chest tighten as I listened to her. She wasn't just apologizing. She was making excuses. Excuses for why she had sought someone else. Excuses for why I wasn't enough anymore. Do you love him? The question came out before I could stop it. Her gaze wavered. She hesitated, biting her lip, the silence between us growing unbearable. No, she finally whispered, barely audible. I don't love him. I love you. I always have. But the words felt empty. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I didn't know if it was pain for me or pain for herself. Maybe both. I took a deep breath, trying to push down the anger and the heartbreak that were threatening to overwhelm me. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Jessica. I don't know if I can keep forgiving you. I don't know if I can keep being the person who takes on your burdens, who fixes everything for you, only to be tossed aside when it's convenient. The words hung in the air between us, raw and unfiltered. It felt like I had finally said the truth that had been buried inside me for so long, the truth I had been afraid to admit to myself. I don't want to lose you, she said quietly, her voice breaking. I don't want to lose everything we've built. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but it wasn't enough. The damage had been done, and no matter how much she apologized or begged, I couldn't forget what she had taken from me. I stood up, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I think it's too late for that, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was anything but. I need to go. As I walked away from the cafe, I didn't look back. Part of me wanted to believe that there was still something worth saving, but the other part, the part that had been betrayed, was done. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was free. It's strange, isn't it? How life can feel like it's falling apart piece by piece, and then, just when you think you can't take anymore, it starts to fall back together. Slowly, imperceptibly at first. But then, like the tide pulling away from the shore, you start to notice the change. The weeks that followed were filled with small victories. I started seeing things differently. The things that had once consumed me, the late nights lying awake, the constant replaying of Jessica's words, the suffocating weight of what she had done, started to fade into the background. I didn't forget what had happened, not at all. But I began to understand that my healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing to move forward despite it all. I started picking up the pieces of my life. I spent more time with my friends, actually making the effort to enjoy the things I used to love, things I had abandoned when I was wrapped up in trying to fix everything for Jessica. I started running again, and those early morning jogs became my sanctuary. Every step felt like I was leaving more of my past behind. I signed up for a cooking class and met new people, people who didn't know about my history, people who just saw me as me and not as a husband, not as a victim of betrayal. It felt liberating. And then there was the night I met Clara. It happened on a Friday evening. I went to a local bar with a few friends after work, the kind of place where you can relax without feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. I didn't expect much from the night, just some drinks and good company. But that's when I saw her. Clara. She was sitting at the bar with a friend, laughing with this genuine, radiant smile that immediately caught my attention. I hesitated at first. Part of me was still broken, still unsure about whether I was ready to open up to someone again. But there was something about Clara that made me want to take a chance. She seemed different, real, down to earth. So after some internal back and forth, I mustered up the courage and walked over. We talked for hours, and by the end of the night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Clara didn't know about my past with Jessica. She didn't need to. All she saw was a man who was trying to rebuild his life, and somehow that felt freeing. I didn't rush anything with Clara. It wasn't about filling a void left by Jessica anymore. It was about finding joy in the present. Slowly, we began seeing each other more. There were no expectations, no pressure. Just two people learning to trust again. I remember the first time Clara kissed me. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't desperate. It was just a simple, gentle moment, like a promise that things were going to be okay, that I was going to be okay. In time, Jessica reached out again. She sent me a message one night, apologizing once more, saying she still loved me and wished we could go back to how things were. But I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't feel anger when I read her words. I just felt tired of the past. Tired of holding on to something that was never going to be the same again. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because I had finally realized that the person I needed to save wasn't Jessica. It was me. And as the weeks passed, I began to understand something that I hadn't known before. Sometimes, the most powerful form of love you can give is to love yourself enough to walk away when things aren't right. Now, as I stand here looking at Clara beside me, I realize that all the pain, all the brokenness, all the betrayals, it wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter I get to write, and for once I'm ready. It's hard to explain the kind of peace that settles in your bones after you've been through so much turmoil. For months, I had been consumed by the weight of Jessica's betrayal, constantly questioning myself, wondering what I did wrong and why I couldn't fix it. But now, with Clara by my side, there was a quiet certainty in my heart that I had been searching for all along. Clara was different. She didn't just fill a space, she complimented me in ways I didn't know I needed. It wasn't about her being a replacement for Jessica. It was about her being someone who truly saw me for who I was now, not who I used to be. We spent a lot of time together, but not in a rush. No big promises, no weighty expectations. Just simple moments, long walks in the park, coffee dates at our favorite little cafe, and even those late-night talks about nothing in particular. The kind of conversations that make you feel seen, heard. I hadn't felt that kind of genuine connection in so long. One night, after we'd been together for about 3 months, Clara and I sat on the couch, a comfortable silence between us. I had just come back from a long week at work, and she was reading a book I had recommended. We hadn't really talked much about our pasts, at least not in detail, but that night it felt like the right moment. "You know," I began, my voice a little quieter than usual, "I never realized how much weight I was carrying, how much of it was not mine to carry." Clara put her book down and turned to me, her eyes soft, understanding. "You're not carrying it alone anymore," she said, her hand reaching for mine, her fingers warm. I smiled faintly, squeezing her hand in return. "It's just funny, isn't it? How we spend so much time holding on to things that were never ours to begin with." Her smile deepened, and she gave a small nod. "Yeah, we're all a little guilty of that." The conversation shifted after that, and we didn't need to talk about Jessica or the mess I'd come from. We just were, and in that moment, it felt like the past had no power over us. But there was still a part of me that needed closure. Not with Jessica, not with the wreckage of what I'd left behind, but with the version of myself that had been so lost in the past. The version that didn't think he was worthy of happiness. The one who had sacrificed everything for someone who never truly saw him. I realized then that I had to stop asking myself, why didn't it work with Jessica? And start asking, what have I learned from this? So I reached out, not to Jessica. Not for any reconciliation or hope of getting back together. I reached out to myself. To the man I had become, I went to therapy. I took time for myself. I learned how to forgive, not her, but me. I forgave myself for staying in a relationship that drained me, for losing sight of who I was in the process of trying to save someone else. It was hard, but it was necessary, and slowly I started to rebuild, not just the life I thought I had lost, but a better one. One that was mine, fully mine. As the months passed, Clara and I grew closer. There were still moments where the past would creep in, memories of Jessica, moments of doubt, and the scars of betrayal. But Clara helped me see that the past didn't define my future. I wasn't going to let it. I wasn't going to let it have any more power over me. One evening, while we were out for dinner, Clara turned to me with a smile. "I've been thinking," she said, a twinkle in her eye. I raised an eyebrow, curious. "About what?" She paused, taking a deep breath. "About us, and how we've been building this together. It's been pretty perfect in a way," I smiled, squeezing her hand. "Yeah, it really has." She leaned in closer, her voice quieter now. "What if we built something even bigger?" My heart skipped a beat, and I looked at her, suddenly realizing what she was asking. It wasn't just about our relationship anymore. It was about our future. A future together. I knew, without a doubt, that this was where I was meant to be. With Clara. With someone who saw me, who loved me, and who made me believe that happiness wasn't something I had to earn. It was something I deserved. I took her hand in mine, smiling with the kind of certainty I hadn't felt in a long time. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady, strong. "Let's build something beautiful, together," and this time I wasn't scared. because for the first time in my life, I knew that the best was yet to come. The days that followed felt like the beginning of something brand new. With Clara, everything seemed different. The uncertainty, the fear that I would never fully heal from my past, slowly faded into the background. There was an easy rhythm between us, a sense of shared purpose that made the world feel brighter. We weren't rushing anything. There were no grand expectations, no pressure to move faster than we wanted to. We were just two people, taking it one step at a time. As the weeks passed, I found myself smiling more. Not out of obligation, not to pretend that everything was okay, but because it was. My life had stopped being something I was just surviving through. It had become something I was living, truly living. I began to notice the little things that had once gone unnoticed. The sound of Clara's laugh when I cracked a stupid joke. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. The way her hand felt perfectly at home in mine. It felt real. It felt easy, and yet there was still that voice at the back of my mind, the voice that kept telling me to be cautious, to protect myself. I'd been hurt before. It wasn't easy to forget that, but with Clara, I didn't need to forget. She never asked me to. She just understood. One evening, while we were sitting on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara spoke up, breaking the comfortable silence we'd been sharing. "You know," she said softly, her gaze focused on the horizon, "I've been thinking about what you said before, about how we're building something together." I looked at her, curious. "Yeah?" She turned to face me, a small smile on her lips. "I think we are, and I want to keep building, but not just this. I want to build a life with you. A real one. The kind of life that's ours completely." My heart skipped a beat. Her words, so simple, yet so loaded, settled in the space between us, heavy with meaning. It was more than just a relationship. She wasn't talking about the fleeting moments or the ups and downs. She was talking about something bigger, something lasting. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly tight. "I want that too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want everything with you, Clara." She smiled, and for a moment the whole world seemed to disappear. It was just her and me. We spent the next few months exploring this new chapter together. There were weekends away, late-night conversations about everything and nothing, quiet mornings where we didn't need words to communicate. We were learning, growing together. But there was one conversation I had been avoiding. One thing I hadn't yet been able to fully face. The idea of us, of truly merging our lives in a way that wasn't just about the present, but about the future. It was one evening, while we were walking through the park, when she brought it up again. "Have you ever thought about what's next?" Clara asked, her voice tentative but hopeful. "About how we take this to the next step?" I stopped walking, turning to her, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I knew what she was asking. She wasn't rushing me, but she wanted to know if I saw a future with her. She wanted to know if I was ready to build a life with her, one that was unshakable, solid, and lasting. And in that moment, everything became clear. It wasn't just about the relationship. It was about trust. It was about love, yes, but also about the ability to build something from the ground up, brick by brick. And I realized that for the first time in my life, I was ready to build. I took her hand, looking into her eyes, feeling the weight of her question. And with all the certainty I could muster, I said, "Yes, I've thought about it, and I want it. I want everything with you. I'm ready." Her smile was the most genuine I had ever seen, her eyes soft with relief and something else, something deeper. And in that moment, I knew we were on the same path, moving toward the future we'd both dreamed of. We didn't have all the answers yet, but we didn't need them, because together we would figure it out. Together we would build something strong, something unbreakable, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what was coming next. I was ready to face it with her by my side.